The notification pierced through the mechanical hum of the oil rig at exactly 3:17 a.m. Persian Gulf time. I'd just finished a grueling 14-hour shift, my coveralls still slick with grease and sweat from wrestling with a stuck valve in 110-degree heat. My name is Marcus Harrison, 52 years old, and I've spent the last 27 years of my life on floating steel cities like this one, pulling black gold from beneath the ocean floor. The message was from Elena, my wife of 18 years. I'm done pretending, Marcus. I'm divorcing you and moving to Scottsdale with Ryan. He's 25 and makes me feel alive again. I've taken everything from our accounts you owe me. That much for all the nights alone. Don't try to call. My lawyer will contact you. A kissing emoji followed, like this was some kind of joke. I sat on the edge of my narrow bunk, the phone screen casting blue shadows in the cramped quarters I shared with two other engineers. The Persian Gulf stretched endlessly beyond our porthole, black water meeting black sky. Another message buzzed through, a screenshot of our joint savings account showing $0 where 142,000 should have been. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. 27 years in the oil fields teaches you to stay calm when everything's falling apart. I typed back 3 words. Understood. Good luck. Then I powered off my phone, stripped off my work clothes, and stepped into the shower. The water was barely lukewarm, it always was out here, but I stood under it for a long time, watching the grime swirl down the drain. 18 years. Nearly 2 decades of marriage dissolving in a text message while I worked myself raw to build our future. Jackson knocked on the bathroom door. Harrison, you good? Shift change in 6. All good, I called back, my voice steadier than I felt, just washing off the day. But we both knew some things don't wash off that easily. The next morning arrived with its usual brutality, blazing sun-metallic air, the constant thrum of machinery. I showed up for breakfast at 0600, like always, grabbed black coffee and powdered eggs, took my usual spot at the corner table. The guys could tell something was off. You don't work this close with people for months at a time without developing a sixth sense for trouble. Everything's solid at home, Vincent, our rig supervisor, asked carefully as he passed my table. Nothing I can't handle, I replied, taking another sip of bitter coffee. Platform diagnostics still showing that pressure anomaly on Deck C. He got the message. We didn't do personal drama out here. Too dangerous. One distracted worker could cost lives. Vincent nodded and moved on, but I caught him glancing back, concern creased into his weathered face. During my lunch break, I fired up my laptop in the communications room. The satellite internet was sluggish, but eventually my email loaded. 17 new messages. Most were from Elena's lawyer, a man named Bradley Fitzgerald, who specialized in high-asset marital dissolutions. The letterhead on his emails probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. The demands were breathtaking. Spousal support based on lifestyle maintenance, half of my 401k, the house in Dallas, even my truck, the F-150 I'd rebuilt with my father before he died. She claimed abandonment, saying my work schedule constituted constructive desertion of the marriage. One line made me laugh, dark and hollow. Mrs. Harrison requires compensation for the emotional trauma of her husband's chronic absence and her resulting need to seek comfort elsewhere. Comfort. That's what she called it. I closed the laptop without responding and headed back to work. 2 more weeks on this rotation. 2 more weeks of 12-hour shifts in crushing heat while the life I thought I'd built crumbled 8,000 miles away. The younger me might have begged for emergency leave, raced home to salvage what was left. But at 52, I'd learned that some battles are won by not fighting them at all. That night, I wrote one email. Not to Elena or her lawyer, but to my cousin Daniel in Houston. He was a CPA who'd helped me with taxes over the years. The message was brief: need to implement the contingency plan we discussed. Code Winter. No questions needed. His response came within minutes. Already on it. Don't respond to anything until you're stateside. Trust me. Code Winter. We'd set it up 8 years ago after watching my friend Carlos lose everything in his divorce house savings, even his pension. Daniel had suggested protecting myself, just in case. I'd thought it was paranoid at the time. Now, lying in my bunk listening to the rig's heartbeat, I whispered a silent thank you to my past self for listening. My phone stayed off for the rest of the rotation. Whatever Elena and her boy toy were planning, they could wait. I had work to do, men counting on me and steel to pull from the earth. The rest was just noise. But late at night, when the rig settled into its deepest groans and my bunkmates snored softly, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder when she'd decided I was disposable. Was it a sudden revelation or a slow erosion? When did the man working himself into an early grave for their future become the obstacle to her happiness? I'd built my life on routine precision, calculating pressure points and stress fractures in metal. Turns out I'd missed the ones in my own home. 2 weeks. Then I'd go home and survey the damage. But first I had a job to finish. Out here, at least I still knew who I was. The flight from Dubai to Houston stretched endlessly every hour in the recycled air, giving me time to think about what waited at home. I'd maintained radio silence for 2 weeks, letting Elena and her lawyer fill my inbox with increasingly urgent demands. The last message received just before boarding had switched from legal threats to emotional manipulation. Marcus, please. We can work this out. Call me. Too late for that. Daniel met me at IAH, his expression grim but satisfied. He handed me a folder and a burner phone as we walked to his car. You're going to want to sit down before you read that, he said. In his car, I opened the folder. Credit card statements, bank records, text message, transcripts. The evidence was methodical, damning, and went back further than I'd imagined. 14 months, Daniel said, pulling onto the beltway. She's been planning this for 14 months minimum. Started small, a few thousand here and there to accounts under her maiden name. Then bigger transfers over the last quarter. How much total? 214,000, not just the 142,000 from your joint account. She found other sources. My chest tightened. What other sources? She refinanced the house without telling you. Forged your signature on a $40,000 home equity line of credit. Also changed your life insurance beneficiary 6 months ago. The Houston skyline blurred past as I absorbed this. 18 years of marriage, and she'd been dismantling it piece by piece while I worked rigs from the Gulf to the North Sea. The woman who used to cry when I left for rotations had become someone capable of forgery, of systematic betrayal. Tell me about him, I said finally. This Ryan. Daniel's jaw tightened. Ryan Chen, 25, like she said. Former personal trainer, though his employment history is sporadic. We found 3 previous relationships with women over 45. All ended within 18 months. All left the women financially devastated. A pattern. Of course there was a pattern. There's more. Daniel handed me his tablet showing text messages between Elena and someone saved as R. I scrolled through them, each word a twist of the knife. Jokes about spending my money, plans for their new life in Scottsdale, details about the house they'd put a deposit on using funds from our account. Then I found the exchange that changed everything. Elena Bank froze the transfer. They want Marcus to verify in person. R. He's still offshore for 10 more days, right? Tell him there's an emergency with your mom. Get him to authorize you to handle it. Elena. He's not answering my calls. R. Try harder. We need that money before the house closing or we go to Plan B. Elena. I don't like Plan B. R. It's just insurance money. He works a dangerous job. Accidents happen all the time out there. My hands went cold despite the Texas heat. Daniel was watching me carefully. These are from her cloud backup. She never changed the password on your shared account. Everything syncs automatically. They're talking about, we've already forwarded everything to your lawyer and the police, just in case. I set the tablet down carefully, my mind racing. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was something darker, more calculated. The woman I'd shared my life with was discussing my potential death like a business transaction. "Where are they now?" I asked. "Still at your house. We've been monitoring. They're packing up your things, getting ready to disappear. Moving truck is scheduled for tomorrow morning. And the winter account," Daniel smiled for the first time, "intact. $1.6 million, all properly declared, all legally protected under the corporate structure we established. She never knew it existed. Winter Holdings, LLC, named after my grandmother's maiden name and the creek that ran through my childhood farm. 8 years of diverting 70% of my income there, all legal, all taxed, all invisible to Elena, because she'd never bothered to look at anything beyond our joint accounts. We drove to the lawyer's office, Thomas Reeves, an old friend from college, who'd handled my contracts for years. He was waiting with more documentation and a plan. "She filed for divorce with claims of emotional abuse and financial control," Thomas explained. "Says she fled in fear for her safety. It's a common tactic to gain sympathy and justify taking the money. I've been on a rig in the Persian Gulf for 7 weeks, which we can prove with passport stamps, company records, and security logs. But Marcus," he leaned forward, "she doesn't know you're back. We can use that." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Let them continue preparing to run, document everything, then serve papers just as they thought they were free and clear. The domestic violence claim would crumble under the weight of my verified absence. The forged documents would become criminal charges. The text messages about Plan B would transform her from victim to potential conspirator. When I asked, "Tomorrow morning, sheriff will serve them at 9 a.m. You can be there if you want or stay away. Your choice." I thought about 18 years of marriage. The woman who'd once waited by the phone for my satellite calls, who'd kept my picture by her bedside, who'd sworn she understood the sacrifices we were making for our future. Somewhere along the way, that woman had disappeared, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. "I'll be there," I said quietly. "She should see my face when it happens." Thomas nodded. "We'll set it up. For tonight, you'll stay with Daniel. Don't go near the house. Don't contact anyone who might tell her you're back." As we left his office, my phone, my real phone, showed 47 missed calls from Elena. I deleted them all without listening. Whatever words she had for me now, they were just noise. The only language that mattered anymore was the truth written in bank statements and forged signatures. That night in Daniel's guest room, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of it. Not just the betrayal, but the premeditation. While I'd been sending money home, planning our retirement, dreaming of the day I could finally stop chasing oil across the globe, she'd been plotting my erasure from our life. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed I was as careless with our future as she'd become with our marriage. Tomorrow she'd learn differently. Tomorrow, the woman who'd reduced our life together to a text message would discover what she'd really thrown away. I sat in Harold Martinez's kitchen at 5 a.m., watching my house through his window. Harold was my neighbor for 12 years, a retired petroleum engineer who understood the life without needing explanations. He'd called Daniel when the moving trucks started arriving, documenting everything with the methodical precision of a man who'd spent decades preventing disasters on rigs. "She had your grandfather's desk loaded yesterday," Harold said, refilling my coffee. "The one you restored in the garage." That desk had taken me 6 months of weekends to bring back to life. Grandfather had built it himself in 1934, each joint perfect, every drawer sliding smooth as silk. Elena had called it an eyesore, wanted to throw it out for something from Pottery Barn. I'd refused. Now she was stealing it. "Real estate agent came by too," Harold continued. "Took pictures, put up a sign. Coming soon, price to move fast." My house, the one I'd bought before I even met her, paid off through years of offshore work. She was trying to sell it out from under me while I was supposed to be 8,000 miles away. The audacity was breathtaking. Through the window, I watched lights flicker on. 6 a.m. Elena had always been an early riser, liked to do yoga as the sun came up. For a moment I saw her silhouette in the bedroom window stretching. Then another figure joined her, younger, leaner, Ryan. My coffee mug creaked under my grip. By 7 a.m. they were loading boxes into Ryan's black Audi. Small stuff, probably jewelry, important documents, easy to carry valuables. They moved with the casual efficiency of people who thought they had all the time in the world. Elena wore the sundress I'd bought her in Dubai, the yellow one that caught the light. She looked happy, relaxed, like a woman without a care. At 8:30 the moving truck arrived. 3 men jumped out, began loading furniture with practice speed. I watched them carry out the leather couch we'd bought together, the dining set from our 5th anniversary, the bedroom furniture we'd selected piece by piece. Our life reduced to inventory. Harold's hand settled on my shoulder. "You sure you want to watch this? I need to see it," I said. "All of it." At 8:55, an unmarked Crown Victoria pulled up, followed by a sheriff's cruiser. The moving truck was blocked in. Perfect timing. Thomas had sent a court officer along with the deputies. No room for error on this. I stood, straightened my shirt. Time to go home. The walk across the street felt both endless and too quick. 18 years since I'd first carried Elena across this threshold. Now I was returning to reclaim what was left. The deputies were already at the door when I reached the driveway. Elena answered, irritation flashing to confusion as she saw the uniforms. She was saying something about a misunderstanding when she spotted me. The color drained from her face like water from a broken glass. "Marcus." It came out as a whisper. Behind her, Ryan appeared, one arm sliding possessively around her waist. He was younger than his photos suggested, all gym muscles and salon-styled hair. "Hello, Elena." My voice came out steady, calm. "Surprise." The deputies stepped forward. "Elena Harrison, Ryan Chen. We have papers to serve. You're supposed to be in the Gulf." Elena stammered. "Your rotation doesn't end until..." "It ended 2 weeks ago." I watched her process this, watched her realize how badly she'd miscalculated. "I've been home for 3 days. Ryan puffed up, stepping forward. "You can't just..." "Mr. Chen," the court officer interrupted, voice sharp with authority. "I'd advise you to remain silent and review these documents. You're named in multiple charges, including conspiracy to commit fraud and potential conspiracy to commit insurance fraud." The word insurance hit them both like a physical blow. Elena's hand went to her throat. Ryan stepped back, his confidence evaporating. The officer continued reading. "Emergency restraining order preventing either party from disposing of marital assets. Freeze on all accounts pending investigation. Criminal complaint for forgery regarding a home equity loan. Nullification of any property sale agreements. Notice of divorce proceedings citing fraud, forgery, and criminal conspiracy." "This is insane." Elena found her voice. "Marcus, we can talk about this. I was protecting our assets. You're never here. I had to make decisions, like forging my signature, like discussing my life insurance policy with your boyfriend." She went white. Ryan was already backing toward the door, but a deputy blocked his path. 30 minutes, the court officer announced. "You may collect personal items, only clothing and toiletries. Everything else remains pending court inventory. Deputies will supervise." As they were escorted inside, Elena turned back. "Marcus, please, 18 years. Doesn't that mean anything?" I looked at her, really looked. The laugh lines I'd traced with my fingers, the hair I'd brushed back from her face 1,000 times. The woman who'd once driven 4 hours to meet me at the airport because she couldn't wait another day. When had she become this stranger? It meant everything, I said quietly. "That's why this hurts." I turned and walked away, her voice calling after me, pleading, but I'd heard enough words. Now it was time for consequences. Back at Harold's, we watched them carry out garbage bags of clothes under deputy supervision. Ryan kept checking his phone, pacing, clearly desperate to leave. Elena sat on the porch steps, head in her hands. The moving truck pulled away empty, the drivers looking confused but not arguing with law enforcement. Finally, Ryan loaded their bags into his Audi. Elena had to be coaxed from the porch, taking one last look at the house before climbing into the passenger seat. As they drove away, I wondered if she was thinking about all the mornings she'd stood in that doorway, waving goodbye as I left for another rotation, all the homecomings, all the promises that this was temporary, that we were building something. "You okay?" Harold asked. I thought about it. Getting there. My phone buzzed. "Thomas, they're gone. House is secure. We've got locksmiths en route." And Marcus Ryan Chen just cleared out the joint account Elena set up in both their names, took all $47,000 she had left, and disappeared. I wasn't surprised. Patterns like Daniel had said. Ryan had gotten what he could and cut his losses when things got legal. Elena was alone now, her 25-year-old salvation revealed as just another predator. What about Elena? Her sister in Oklahoma City. That's where she's headed, according to the credit card ping. She'll be served with the criminal charges there. I hung up and looked around Harold's kitchen. Photos of his grandkids covered the refrigerator, a life built on solid ground. "Thank you," I said, "for watching out." He waved it off. "You'd have done the same. What now? Now I had a house to reclaim, a life to rebuild, and a future to figure out. But first, I was going home. My home, where Elena's yoga mat wouldn't be in the corner anymore, where Ryan's presence would be scrubbed away, where I could finally stop pretending everything was fine. The locksmith was already at work when I arrived. I stood in my driveway, keys to new locks in hand, and felt something I hadn't expected: relief. Not satisfaction, not victory. Just simple, clean relief. The war wasn't over. There would be lawyers, court dates, division of what remained, but the ambush she'd planned had failed. The life she'd tried to steal was still mine. As I unlocked my front door with the new key, I made myself a promise. No more sacrificing the present for a future with someone who'd already left. No more empty houses echoing with absence. This time I'd build something real, even if I had to build it alone. The emails started 3 days after Elena fled to Oklahoma City. First tears and apologies, then anger and accusations. Finally desperation as the reality of her situation became clear. Ryan had vanished with her remaining cash. Her credit cards were frozen. Her sister was already tired of the drama. I didn't respond to any of it. Daniel and Thomas handled the communication, building our case methodically, but the investigation into Ryan Chen revealed something that changed everything. "You need to see this," Daniel said, arriving at my house with a thick folder. We sat at my kitchen table, the one piece of furniture Elena hadn't managed to pack, and he spread out the documents. Ryan Chen isn't even his real name. It's Ryan Kobayashi. He's done this 3 times before. Daniel laid out newspaper clippings, court records, social media screenshots. Sarah Mitchell in Phoenix left her $280,000 in debt. Maria Gonzalez in San Diego lost her house and retirement savings. Jennifer Wu in Seattle declared bankruptcy after he disappeared with everything. The pattern was identical each time. Charming younger man targets successful woman in troubled marriage, isolates her from support systems, encourages her to leave husband and liquidate assets, disappears once the money is secured. It gets worse. Daniel continued sliding over a police report. Jennifer Wu's ex-husband died in a hiking accident 6 weeks after their divorce. Fell off a trail he'd hiked for 20 years. Ryan was supposedly in Vancouver that weekend, but his alibi was thin. My blood chilled. The text messages about Plan B took on darker implications. "We need to give this to the FBI," I said. "Already done. Thomas forwarded everything yesterday. They're very interested, especially in the insurance fraud angle." Daniel paused. Marcus, Elena might have been in real danger. This guy is a professional predator. I thought about Elena alone now and in her sister's spare room, finally understanding she'd traded our life for a con artist's attention. Part of me felt, not sympathy exactly, but a hollow recognition that we'd both been fools in different ways. That afternoon, Harold knocked on my door. Thought you should know there's been a silver Toyota circling the block. Young Asian guy driving. Matches the description of your wife's friend. Ryan, he'd come back. I called Thomas immediately. Within an hour, an unmarked police car was parked down the street. Sure enough, the Toyota appeared around 4 p.m., slowing as it passed my house. The police followed discreetly as it turned the corner. 20 minutes later, Thomas called. They pulled him over 2 blocks away. He had burglary tools and a gun. Claimed he was just checking on Elena's things, but that's enough for arrest and a full investigation. A gun. The man who'd been in my house, who'd worn my clothes and drunk my whiskey, had come back armed. Plan B hadn't been abandoned after all. The arrest made the local news that night. Suspected serial romance scammer arrested in Dallas suburb. Elena would see it wherever she was watching. She'd know now what she'd invited into our life. Her lawyer called the next morning. Bradley Fitzgerald's smooth voice had lost its edge. Ms. Harrison would like to discuss a settlement. She's willing to drop all claims in exchange for minimal support and moving expenses. No deal, Thomas replied on speaker. She participated in forgery and conspiracy. The criminal charges stand. Any settlement will be on our terms. The investigation expanded. FBI agents interviewed me about our finances, our marriage, when I'd noticed changes. They'd linked Ryan to scams in 4 states, possibly more. Each woman told the same story. He'd made them feel special, convinced them their husbands were the problem, then vanished with everything. He's good at what he does, Agent Sarah Coleman explained. Studies his targets for months, learns their vulnerabilities. Your wife's loneliness was textbook for him. How long was he watching us based on his pattern? He probably identified her at that gym she joined 3 years ago. These guys are patient. 3 years. While I was working in the North Sea, the Gulf, wherever oil needed pulling from the earth, a predator had been circling my wife, and she'd let him in. A week later, Elena's sister called. She wants to come get some things, personal items, photos. She won't fight you anymore, Marcus. She just wants to move on. I agreed, but only with supervision. Elena arrived on a Tuesday afternoon looking like she'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. Her designer clothes replaced with jeans and a faded sweater, no makeup, hair pulled back carelessly. She stood in the doorway of what had been our home, taking in the empty spaces where furniture had been. I kept your photos, I said, handing her a box. The albums, your parents' pictures, they're all there. Her hands shook as she took it. Thank you. We stood there awkwardly, 18 years of marriage reduced to this strange formal dance. I saw the news, she said finally, about Ryan, about what he really was. I nodded, waiting. I'm sorry, Marcus, not just for everything, but for being so stupid, so blind. Tears ran down her face. He made me feel, God, it sounds pathetic now, he made me feel seen, like I mattered. You always mattered, Elena. No, she shook her head. I was a supporting character in your life, the wife who waited. The one who kept the home fires burning while you conquered the world. I got lost somewhere, and he saw that, used it. There was truth in her words, uncomfortable as it was. I'd built our financial future, but maybe neglected our emotional one. Still, that didn't excuse the betrayal, the theft, the conspiracy. I need you to know, she continued, I didn't know about his past. The insurance thing? I told him no, I would never have, but you discussed it. She closed her eyes for about 30 seconds before I shut it down. But yes, we discussed it. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. An hour later, she left with her photos and nothing else. No furniture, no money, no pieces of the life we'd built. Her sister's car disappeared around the corner, and I knew I'd never see her again. That night, Thomas called with an update. Ryan had been denied bail flight risk and the weapon possession. The FBI had connected him to 6 different women across 10 years. 2 ex-husbands had died in accidents. He was looking at decades in federal prison. Elena's cooperating fully, Thomas added. Her testimony will help put him away. In exchange, the DA's offering probation on the forgery charges. Fine, I said. She'd been a fool, but she'd also been a victim. Let the law sort out the degrees of guilt. I sat on my porch that evening, bourbon in hand, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. The house felt different now, not empty, but waiting, like it knew this chapter was closing and something new was coming. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it, then saw the preview. Mr. Harrison, my name is Jennifer Wu. I heard about your case. Thank you for stopping him. He destroyed my life, but at least he won't destroy anyone else's. I raised my glass to the darkening sky, to Jennifer Wu and her ex-husband, to Sarah Mitchell and Maria Gonzalez, to all the women Ryan had hunted, and the men who'd been collateral damage, even to Elena, who'd learned the hardest way possible that some saviors are just predators in disguise. Tomorrow the legal machinery would grind on, but tonight I sat with the strange peace of knowing that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to unexpected justice. Ryan had wanted my life, my money, maybe even my death. Instead, he'd gotten a cage. The Dallas County Courthouse stood like a fortress of justice against the December sky. 6 months had passed since that 3 a.m. text in the Persian Gulf. 6 months of lawyers' depositions and evidence gathering. Today, it would finally end. I arrived early, wearing the charcoal suit I'd bought specifically for this. Thomas walked beside me, briefcase in hand, confidence in his stride. The morning air bit sharp and clean, nothing like the suffocating heat of the oil rigs. Elena's already here, Thomas informed me as we passed through security. Her sister drove her down from Oklahoma City. She looks rough. I'd avoided seeing her since that day she collected her photos. The legal process had moved forward without requiring face-to-face contact, but today in court there would be no avoiding it. The courtroom was smaller than expected, functional rather than grand. Judge Patricia Winters presided. Thomas had smiled when we drew her assignment. She has no patience for financial manipulation in divorce cases, he'd said. This will go well. Elena sat at the opposite table with her new lawyer, a court-appointed attorney who looked fresh out of law school. The designer clothes were long gone, replaced by a simple black dress that hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight, her face drawn and pale. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. All rise, the bailiff announced. Judge Winters entered, a small woman with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed the files before her, methodically, occasionally making notes. The silence stretched until it felt like a living thing. I've reviewed all submitted evidence, she began, her voice carrying despite its soft tone. Bank records, forged documents, text messages, criminal complaints, and depositions from multiple parties, including the FBI, regarding Mr. Kobayashi, also known as Ryan Chen. She looked directly at Elena. Mrs. Harrison, do you understand the full scope of what you've participated in? Elena stood shakily. Yes, Your Honor. You systematically drained marital accounts over 14 months. You forged your husband's signature on a $40,000 loan. You attempted to sell his property without his knowledge. You filed false claims of domestic violence while your husband was documented to be thousands of miles away. Is this accurate? Yes, Your Honor. Elena's voice was barely audible. Judge Winters turned to me. Mr. Harrison, the court recognizes the structured separation of assets through Winter Holdings, LLC. While some might question the ethics of maintaining separate finances unknown to a spouse, the court finds that all holdings were legally declared, properly taxed, and accumulated through legitimate income. You continued to support your household throughout the marriage despite maintaining these separate assets. Is this correct? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. She nodded and continued reading. The court also notes the criminal investigation into Mr. Kobayashi has revealed a pattern of targeting married women for financial exploitation. Mrs. Harrison appears to be his latest victim, though her willing participation in illegal activities prevents her from claiming complete innocence. The judge removed her glasses, a gesture that somehow made her seem more formidable, not less. In my 30 years on this bench, I've seen countless cases of marital asset disputes. Rarely have I seen such a combination of calculated deception and external manipulation. Mrs. Harrison, you were clearly influenced by a professional criminal, but you made choices, illegal choices, choices that could have resulted in your husband's financial ruin or worse. Elena was crying silently now, tears running down her face. However, Judge Winters continued, the court also recognizes that Mr. Kobayashi is now facing federal charges, including wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges related to the deaths of 2 individuals. Mrs. Harrison's cooperation with federal authorities has been noted. She put her glasses back on and delivered her ruling with crisp efficiency. All transferred funds will be returned to Mr. Harrison immediately. The house remains his sole property. The forged home equity loan is void, with the lending institution to pursue Mrs. Harrison for fraud separately. All marital assets determined to be Mr. Harrison's separate property shall remain with him. Regarding spousal support, she paused, looking at Elena's lawyer, who seemed to shrink in his chair. The request is denied. Mrs. Harrison's actions constitute marital fraud, eliminating any claim to support. The criminal forgery charges will be addressed separately in criminal court. This court recommends probation given Mrs. Harrison's cooperation with federal authorities and her status as a victim of a professional con artist. She turned to me one last time. Mr. Harrison, is there anything you wish to add to the record? I stood again, thought for a moment. No, Your Honor. I just want to move forward. Then this matter is concluded. Divorce granted. Property division as stated. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down with finality. In the hallway afterward, Elena approached while Thomas was organizing paperwork. Her sister hovered nearby, protective and wary. Marcus, Elena said, her voice hoarse. I know you don't owe me anything, but I need you to know something. I waited. Ryan, he's been calling from jail, threatening me, saying I ruined his life, that I owe him. She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm scared. He's in federal custody, I reminded her. He can't hurt you. He has friends, other people he's worked with. The FBI warned me. She trailed off, looking lost. I'm staying with my sister, but I don't feel safe. I looked at this woman I'd once promised to protect forever. Despite everything, I couldn't feel satisfaction in her fear. Document everything, every call, every threat. Give it to the FBI. They'll handle it. She nodded, started to turn away, then stopped. The money I took, I know it doesn't matter now, but most of it went to him. I maybe kept $20,000 for myself. The rest, he manipulated it away, bit by bit. I was such a fool. We both were, I said quietly, just in different ways. Her sister led her away then, and I watched them disappear into the elevator. Thomas appeared at my elbow. Clean break, he said. Better than we could have hoped. Yeah. I looked around the courthouse hallway at other couples waiting for their own reckonings, their own endings. What happens to her now? Probation, most likely. Community service. She'll have to rebuild from nothing. He paused. You did the right thing not pushing for jail time. Had I? Or was I just tired of the whole mess? Either way, it was done. Outside, Dallas stretched under winter sunshine, cold but clear. My truck waited in the parking garage, the same F-150 Elena had tried to claim. I sat behind the wheel for a moment, not starting the engine, just breathing. 6 months ago, I'd been on a rig in the Persian Gulf, married, secure in my future. Now I was divorced, alone, but oddly free. The money was safe. The house was mine. The predator who'd circled my life was in a cage where he belonged. My phone buzzed. A text from Vincent at the oil company. Heard about your situation. Sorry, brother. Got a consultant position if you want it. Norway project, but home-based. Interested, I smiled. Maybe it was time to stop running to the ends of the earth. Maybe it was time to build something here on solid ground. Very interested, I typed back. Let's talk. As I drove home, I thought about Elena one last time. Somewhere in Oklahoma City, she was starting over with nothing but regret and fear. Part of me pitied her. Part of me would always wonder what went so wrong that she'd chosen a con man's promises over 18 years of real life. But mostly I was grateful. Grateful I'd protected myself. Grateful the truth had surfaced. Grateful that sometimes, even when your world explodes in a text message at 3 a.m., you can still find your way to solid ground. The house was quiet when I arrived, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like possibility. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, the real trouble began. I was reviewing contracts for the Norway project at my kitchen table when my phone rang. Unknown number, but Dallas area code. I almost didn't answer. "Mr. Harrison," a woman's voice, professional but tense. "This is Agent Coleman from the FBI. We need to discuss your safety." My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. "What's happened? Ryan Kobayashi made bail yesterday. A associate posted it, someone we've been tracking but couldn't hold. He's supposed to be on house arrest with an ankle monitor, but the monitor was found cut off in a dumpster this morning. He's in the wind." The kitchen suddenly felt very exposed. All those windows I'd never thought twice about. "You think he's coming here, we're not sure. But you testified against him. Your evidence is key to our case, and he has a history of—" She paused, choosing words carefully. "Retaliating against those he perceives as threats." Within an hour, my quiet street was subtle chaos. Unmarked cars at both ends of the block. Agent Coleman in my living room with 2 other agents reviewing security protocols. Harold watching from his window, concerned but respecting boundaries. "We believe he'll try to recover hidden assets first," Coleman explained. "These guys always have backup funds. But Mr. Harrison, I need you to understand, 2 of his previous victims' ex-husbands are dead. We can't prove he killed them, but the pattern is disturbing. I thought about the golf clubs in my garage, the baseball bat by my bed, suburban dad defenses against a professional predator. What do you recommend? Temporary relocation would be safest. We can arrange none." The word came out harder than intended. I've spent 27 years living in temporary places. This is my home. I'm not running anymore. Coleman exchanged glances with her partners. "Then we modify the house. Security system upgrade, cameras, panic buttons. And you'll have surveillance. For how long? Until we catch him." The next days blurred together. Security contractors installing cameras that covered every angle. Motion sensors, reinforced locks. My house transformed into something between a home and a bunker. I'd lived on offshore rigs with less security. Daniel visited bringing groceries so I wouldn't have to leave. "This is insane," he said, watching the FBI tech van outside. "Maybe you should hide, let him dictate my life." I gestured around the kitchen. "I've already let fear of losing everything cost me 18 years of really living. I'm done with that." On the 4th night, things escalated. I woke at 2 a.m. to my phone buzzing. The new security app showed movement in the backyard. A figure in dark clothing, face obscured, methodically checking windows. My hand was already on the panic button when the figure looked directly at the camera. Not Ryan, too tall, different build, but deliberate, letting me know he saw the camera, saw me watching. The FBI response was instant. Agents converged from their positions, but the intruder vanished into the greenway behind my property. They found nothing but footprints and a message spray painted on my shed. "You took everything. Hired help." Coleman concluded at dawn as crime scene techs processed my backyard. "Ryan's testing our response time, your defenses. He's planning something." Elena called that afternoon, hysteria in her voice. "He was here at my sister's, just sitting in a car outside watching. When the police came, he was gone. But Marcus, I'm terrified. Where are you now?" "FBI safe house in Tulsa. They moved us this morning." Her voice dropped. "This is my fault. I brought him into our lives. I'm so sorry. I didn't disagree, but what was the point? Just stay safe. Testify when they catch him. That's all you can do now." 2 days later, Harold knocked urgently. "Marcus, there's something you need to see." From his kitchen window, we watched a utility van parked 3 houses down. It had been there for hours, no company logos, no workers visible. Could be nothing, Harold said, but his hand was already on his phone. "Call it in." I agreed. The van pulled away before agents arrived, but traffic cameras caught the plates. Stolen, naturally. But it confirmed Ryan was surveilling, planning, waiting for his moment. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every noise was suspect. Every shadow a threat. This was what Elena had felt. I realized the suffocating paranoia of being hunted. I'd spent years in actually dangerous places, but those dangers were predictable. Pressure values and fire hazards followed rules. Human predators didn't. My phone rang at 3 a.m., same time as that first text in the Persian Gulf. Unknown number. Against every instinct, I answered. "You destroyed my life." Ryan's voice calm and conversational. 3 years of work, planning, cultivation. Gone because you couldn't just stay on your rig. "You destroyed your own life," I replied, hitting the record button Coleman had shown me. "You're a parasite who got caught." He laughed, soft and genuinely amused. Parasite, I showed those women what they were missing, gave them excitement, passion. "What did you give Elena?" "An empty house and a bank account." I gave her honesty, stability, a real life. Boring her to death, you mean? She was dying inside when I found her. Withering away in that suburban prison, waiting for phone calls from a husband who loved oil more than her. There was enough truth in it to sting. Maybe, but that didn't give you the right to rights. His voice hardened. "You want to talk about rights? I had the right to the life I built with her, the money I earned by being what you couldn't. But you had to come home early, had to play the wounded husband, had to sick the feds on me. You threatened my life. Discussed killing me for insurance money." Silence. Then that was just talk. Elena would never have agreed to it, but you would have. You've done it before. Another laugh, darker this time. "Prove it." "Oh wait, you can't. Just like you can't prove I'm going to make you pay for ruining everything. Could be tomorrow, could be next year. But Marcus, you'll never feel safe again. That's my gift to you." The line went dead. Coleman arrived within minutes, but we all knew the call had been routed through multiple proxies. Untraceable. Still, it was evidence of threat violation of bail conditions. "He's escalating," she said. "This kind of direct contact means he's getting desperate or overconfident. Either way, dangerous." I spent the rest of the night in my living room, lights on, watching security feeds. Every car that passed was suspect. Every person walking their dog could be surveillance. This was my life now, a prison of vigilance in my own home. But as dawn broke, painting the sky, the same rust color as Persian Gulf sunrises, I made a decision. Ryan thought he'd won by making me afraid. He thought fear would break me like it had broken his other victims. He'd forgotten I'd spent decades on oil rigs where one moment of fear could kill you and everyone around you, where you learn to pack fear away, use it as fuel for focused action. "I want to make a statement," I told Coleman. "Public. Let him know I'm not hiding." She frowned. "That's not advisable. I've lived my life by what's advisable. Advisable kept me on rigs while my marriage crumbled. Advisable made me an easy mark." I stood, decision crystallizing. I'm done with advisable. The next morning, with FBI approval and presence, I gave an interview to a local news station about romance scams, about predators like Ryan, who targeted lonely spouses. I named him directly, showed his photo, warned other potential victims. "These men are professionals," I said, looking directly into the camera, knowing he'd be watching. "They study you, find your weaknesses, offer you everything your life is missing. But it's all a lie. And when they're done, you're left with nothing but debt and regret." The segment aired that night. Within hours, 2 more victims had come forward, women from Houston and Austin with similar stories. The FBI net was widening. My phone rang at exactly 3 a.m. I was ready. "You think you're clever?" Ryan snarled, all calm, pretense gone. You think you've won. I think you're running out of time, I replied, and places to hide. He hung up without another word. The next morning, Coleman called with news. We got him. Tried to cross into Mexico near Laredo. Border Patrol had his photo from your interview. Relief flooded through me so intense I had to sit down. It's over. This part is. He's being held without bail. This time, federal charges, no games. You're safe, Mr. Harrison. Safe. Such a simple word for such a complex feeling. That evening, I sat on my porch for the first time in 2 weeks. Harold joined me, bringing beer and silent companionship. The FBI surveillance was gone, the cameras remained, but felt less oppressive. My house was becoming home again. Hell of a thing, Harold finally said. Yeah, you did good. Standing up to him. Most wouldn't have. I thought about Elena hidden away in her safe house, about the other women Ryan had destroyed, about the ex-husbands who hadn't survived his attention. Didn't have a choice, I said. Sometimes the only way out is through. We drank in comfortable silence as the sun set over our quiet street. Tomorrow I'd start removing some of the security measures. Next week I'd fly to Houston to begin the Norway project. Life would move forward. But tonight I just sat on my porch in my home, unafraid. It was enough. 5 years later, I stood on the deck of my cabin in Montana, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. The coffee was strong, the air crisp with autumn's promise, and somewhere in the distance an elk bugled its morning call. This had become my favorite moment of each day, the quiet before the world woke up. My phone buzzed with a text from my business partner Lars in Norway. Contract approved for the Kazakhstan consultation. 3 months, excellent terms. You in, I smiled, typing back. Send details. I'll review today. The beauty of consulting was choice. After 27 years of going wherever oil was found, I now decided which projects deserved my expertise. Home-based work, mostly with occasional trips that lasted weeks, not months. The Norway project had evolved into a partnership that respected both experience and boundaries. Inside, I fired up my laptop and checked emails. One caught my eye from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, thank you from a stranger. Mr. Harrison, you don't know me, but 5 years ago your news interview saved my life. I was involved with someone who seemed perfect, who was encouraging me to leave my husband and start fresh with our savings. Your story made me recognize the pattern. I confronted him, and he disappeared that same night. The FBI later confirmed he was an associate of Ryan Kobayashi. I'm still married, still grateful, still careful. Thank you for being brave enough to speak out. Sarah M. Austin, TX. I read it twice, then saved it in the folder with similar messages. There'd been dozens over the years, women who'd recognized the red flags because someone had finally named them publicly. It was an unexpected legacy from the worst period of my life. Harold called that afternoon. We'd stayed in touch even after I'd sold the Dallas house. You see the news, he asked. What news? Ryan Kobayashi. Died in federal prison, apparently made enemies with the wrong people inside. I sat with that information for a long moment. No satisfaction, no celebration, just a closing of a chapter that had already ended for me. What about Elena? She still gets updates on the case. Living in Portland now, from what I heard. Working as a bookkeeper, quiet life. Portland, about as far from Dallas as you could get and still be in the lower 48. I hoped she'd found some peace there, some version of the fresh start she'd wanted so badly. That evening I drove into Whitefish for dinner at the Black Bear Tavern. It had become my weekly ritual: good food, local beer, and conversation with people who knew me as Marcus, the consultant, not Marcus, the guy whose wife tried to rob him blind. Usual Annie, the bartender, asked, already pulling a local IPA. You know me too well. I was halfway through my elk burger when she walked in. Mid-40s, auburn hair streaked with premature silver hiking boots, and that particular confidence of women who'd learned to be comfortable alone. She took the only empty seat at the bar next to mine. First time here, Annie asked her, Just moved to town. Heard this was the place for local flavor. Her voice carried hints of somewhere back east. Boston, maybe. You heard right. I'm Annie. This is Marcus. He's one of our regulars. Marcus, meet Claire, she supplied, offering a handshake. Her grip was firm, calloused. Working hands. Welcome to Whitefish, I said. What brings you to Montana Glacier National Park? I'm a research biologist studying climate impact on alpine ecosystems. 3-year project. She paused. And honestly, I needed to be somewhere that didn't remind me of my ex-husband. I can understand that I said meaning it. We talked through dinner. She was brilliant, funny, self-deprecating about her plant obsession. Recently divorced, no kids, ready for a new chapter. When she laughed at my story about accidentally ordering fermented shark in Iceland, I realized I was genuinely enjoying myself. I should go, she said, eventually checking her watch. Early morning tomorrow, collecting samples at 8,000 feet. But this was nice, really nice. Annie makes a mean breakfast burrito, I offered. If you're ever in town early, I might take you up on that. She left with a smile that lingered. Annie refilled my beer, grinning. About time you talked to someone besides me and the other regulars. It was just conversation, sure it was. But the next Saturday, Claire was there for breakfast, and the Saturday after that. Slowly, carefully, we built something. Coffee became hikes, hikes became dinners, dinners became her showing me her research sites, me teaching her to fly fish. I'm not looking for anything serious, she said one evening 6 months in, as we watched sunset from my deck. My divorce was rough. I'm still figuring out who I am alone. I'm not in a rush, I replied. Been there. Sometimes slow is the only speed that makes sense. She studied me then, scientist evaluating data. You're different from most men I've dated. Settled. Like you've already fought your battles. Most of them anyway. Want to share. So I told her, all of it, Elena Ryan. The text at 3 a.m., the money hidden in winter holdings, the FBI protection, the fear, and the recovery. She listened without interrupting processing. That's intense, she finally said. And you're okay now, really okay getting there. Some days are better than others. Trust is complicated. Tell me about it. My ex had a whole second family in Connecticut, 2 kids and everything. Found out when his other wife called looking for him. She laughed, but it was edged with old pain. Trust is definitely complicated. We sat in comfortable silence, 2 people who'd been broken and rebuilt themselves, carefully navigating whatever this was becoming. I'm glad you told me, she said eventually. Makes more sense now. Why you live like someone who's learned the difference between being alone and being lonely. It's attractive, actually, the self-sufficiency. That night she stayed over for the first time. Nothing rushed, nothing desperate, just 2 people choosing to be less alone. In the morning she made coffee while I cooked eggs, moving around each other with surprising ease. I have to go to Alaska next month, I said over breakfast. Consulting project, 2 weeks, good for you. I'll be in the field anyway. Summer's our busy season. No drama, no clinging, no promises about missing each other desperately. Just adults with full lives making room for connection. It was revolutionary in its simplicity. 2 years passed. Claire kept her apartment in town but spent most weekends at the cabin. We traveled some Alaska to see the Northern Lights, Costa Rica for her research conference, Norway, to meet Lars and his family. But mostly, we lived quietly, building something solid on ground we'd each cleared ourselves. I love you, she said one morning, casually pouring coffee like she'd mentioned the weather. I stopped mid-reach for the cream. Yeah, figured you should know. No pressure, no expectations, just information. I love you too, I said, surprising myself with how easily it came. Also, just information. She grinned. Good information to have. We never married. Neither of us needed that particular proof anymore. But we built a life together anyway, brick by careful brick. Her research, my consulting, our cabin in the mountains. Friends who knew our stories but didn't define us by them. Peace that we'd earned separately and now shared. Sometimes lying in bed, listening to her breathe, I'd think about that text message in the Persian Gulf, how it had shattered everything I thought I knew, how Elena's betrayal had led to Ryan's predation, which led to fear and survival, and eventually this. This quiet life with a brilliant woman who understood that love wasn't desperation or possession, but choice made daily. My phone rang one evening, Daniel calling from Houston. "You sitting down?" he asked, voice strange. "What now?" "Just got word from a lawyer in Portland. Elena passed away, car accident. You're still listed as beneficiary on an old insurance policy. She never changed." I did sit down then. When? 2 weeks ago. Single car, late at night, no other vehicles involved. I thought about Elena as she'd been when we met, vibrant, laughing, full of plans. Then, as I'd last seen her, diminished, frightened, paying for choices that had cost her everything. What happens to the money? That's up to you. It's legally yours. I knew what to do without thinking. Set up a fund, anonymous, for women recovering from romance scams. Let something good come from all of this. "I'll handle it," Daniel said softly. "You okay?" "Yeah, just sad. For who she used to be, who we used to be." Claire found me on the deck later, staring at stars. She sat beside me, not asking, just present. Finally, I told her about the call. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like it's finally over, all of it, every chapter closed." She took my hand. "And this chapter? The one we're writing," I squeezed back. "This one's different. This one we get to choose every page." We sat there until the cold drove us inside, two people who'd learned that sometimes the best love stories begin after the worst endings. That sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what's actually worth keeping. In the morning there would be coffee and work and ordinary life. But tonight we had the quiet understanding of two people who'd survived their own storms and chosen to share the calm that followed. It was more than enough. It was everything.